Okay, this is now the 5 minute tarot for the 16th of July 2017. And today we're going to look at a video sent by someone, Simone. So he's somewhere in Italy, I don't know where. And some of what he says I found on the audio, it was kind of hard to make out. This is because he was recording by an open window and there was a noisy street. It's kind of, I've been in Italy and it kind of reminded me of the atmosphere that you get there. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'll repeat a little bit of what he says, and then I'll talk about the meaning that he gives and the information that he gives. And he's kind of new to tarot reading, but he's enjoying the channel. But it's interesting, I think, because you're going to find what he does. He gets the Hierophant, and it's interesting what he does with it and what sense he makes of it. And there's a little bit of a twist as well, because he doesn't just talk about the card, and you'll see that in the second part. Okay, so here is Simone.
Hey, ciao John, my name is Simone, and yeah, I'm new on tarot readings, and I'm really learning a lot from your channel, so I would like to thank you for that. I would like to contribute to your question about how you can move forward your channel, and yeah, I picked up a card. This happened like a couple of days ago, and the card was it's the Hierophant. The Hierophant, it's quite a card that represents institution. Like it could be the church, it could be work, it could be the gym, it could be something where there are rules that you need to follow in a way. In the card we have the Pope, that we call in Italy the Pope, and it's got two people his back. Now I was wondering if this man has called those two people to get advices, or if those people are working for him and to make his purpose happening. So sorry about this. So yeah, I think the card wanted to suggest that it's YouTube and it's your channel, and you probably need to start a kind of teamwork with someone else, and in order to be to have this improvement, to become kind of holy, if we wanted to put it this way. And yeah, I think this will be the real meaning of this card for this question.
Okay, to recap a little, so Simone says that the Hierophant, he gets a Hierophant, and it can represent institutions, which are kind of like big organizations. So he mentions it could be the church, it could be work, it could be a gym, somewhere where there are rules. And I think that's interesting that he's giving the questioner a picture. He's not just saying institutions, but he's also thinking about a gym. Maybe he goes to a gym, which is why he can see the Hierophant and the gym going together. But he makes the point that it's places where there are rules, that you're supposed to follow. So I guess when the Hierophant's reversed in a reading, it can be that somebody who doesn't follow the rules, or that the rules don't produce what they're supposed to produce, right? So you can have bad rules. And then Simone points to the two people maybe working for the fellow in the middle. And he says they're working to make the person's purposes happen. So then he talks about the importance of, or the possible meaning of teamwork as the meaning of this particular card for this particular question. And so I'd like to mention that when you do a reading, sometimes you're in charge, like the Hierophant is. So you're the one with the knowledge, and you're supposed to put yourself in that position and speak knowledgeably and talk about what you know, or based on your greater understanding of the card, you talk about it. But it doesn't mean that you always have to know everything. And I know when in the beginning, when I when I started, I felt as if I ought to know everything, and you don't. So, so with the Hierophant card, we see you, the reader, may start off as the Pope, as the Hierophant, the one with the information, but you can also slip into the role of asking questions or being one of the two people down below. So in that case, the role switches, and then the questioner becomes the one with the knowledge. But you can still help by explaining. And I'm thinking of Vitautas a couple of days ago. He got the Wheel of Fortune reversed for the past, and I was wondering, okay, what kind of state of mind was he in when he moved into the new apartment? And so if he had been in the room, I would have said, what kind of shape, what were you thinking when you moved in? So you might think that you're supposed to be the great knowledgeable psychic, and so you ought to know what the other person was thinking when they moved in. So I'd like to say one day you're going to get to that point, or you find yourself in that position where you just know. But if you're not there right now, then it's okay to ask the questioner for a response, or to ask them a question about what was going on at the time. You don't have to know everything. And I'd like to point out too that Simone says with this card, teamwork is the meaning of this card for this question. And so what he does is he makes a point, talks about teamwork, and then he moves on. So I think we should remember that when we're reading cards, we don't have to say everything about the card or start talking about things that we know about the card that are maybe interesting, but they're not that relevant to that particular questioner or for that particular question. And sometimes we think about reading afterwards and we think, oh no, I should have said that, or I should have made this point. But the thing is, you didn't make that point during the reading, and you have to trust yourself and trust the tarot. And you probably didn't make that point because it wasn't appropriate, or it may be a correct meaning, but it wasn't appropriate, or it wouldn't have been relevant, or it wouldn't have been understood. So my point is, when you're thinking about readings that you've done and you remember things that you didn't say that you could have said, don't beat yourself up.
And as well, I wanted to point out the signature there is in every card, and I think it could be relevant because it's a logo. Being a logo, it's like something that represents you. So I was wondering if you maybe need to have a logo, or you need to like add buttons on your screen just to kind of connect to different section of your channel when you mention them, because this signature is what connects all of them. And so those two people that work for you, they could be the keys to make this one moving forward, I guess. So yeah, this is basically what came in my mind when I first seen these cards, and it took me a couple of days to record it because I was working, and I'm a very busy guy. But thank you, John, for the lovely inspiration that you give to us every day, and yeah, I hope to see more of your videos, and yeah, many thanks. Ciao, ciao.
So Simone notices the initials on the card. And it's actually, I'll put it on screen. I'll find an easier one to look at. It's PCS, Pamela, P for Pamela, C for Coleman, and S for Smith, which was the name, and PCS, the initials of the person who did the drawings of this particular deck. So some people call it the Waite Smith deck because it's A.E. Waite who, I guess, gave the directions and the instructions, and Pamela Coleman Smith, who actually did the design. So Simone is saying you've got the initials, which is like a logo, and he makes the point that the logo represents you. So he then extends the idea of representation by talking about putting buttons on screen to connect with the audience. In the same way that the signature connects all the cards because it's a common feature. So he talks about maybe using buttons on screen, a bit like navigation, to connect to different areas of the channel. In the same way that the logo or the initials on one card can connect you with other cards. Although I do think that I remember this point from years ago, and I think that the Pamela Coleman Smith initials are on every card except for the full. I don't think it's on the full card, which has some kind of significance, though I'm not sure what we would say about it. So, this I think is again reading the card, because Simone saw the initials, and then he made a connection, initials, a logo, and something that gives identity. Now, he may be in graphic design, so he's kind of programmed to see or to be aware of and recognize logos and branding and identity and so on. But we can come back to that idea in another video of how you see what makes sense to you. But then he takes the idea of logo or initials, logo, identity, and then buttons to help the viewer. So I'm thinking, in the light of what he said, I think it is a good idea for me and for you when you do your own channel or when you do your own videos to be aware of the visual impact of the channel and websites too. So this goes back to Julie talking about appearance and what you look like. So I'm thinking that my channel, this channel, and websites, they ought to look good. And in the long run, I'm going to work on it, or I'm going to find, as Simone mentioned, find somebody to do it for me. So Simone identifies teamwork and involving other people. And this is something that other contributors have talked about, even though they got different cards. And this can make it, I think this is important because it can make us realize that it's not so much a card meaning that's important, but what sense it makes. So if there's something in the card, in this case initials, or the three people working together. So if you take that as a starting point and expand on that idea and make sense of that idea for the question, then what you're going to talk about is going to be important and relevant. And you're kind of making up your own meanings because you're not going to find these types of meanings in a book. But it works and it's valid and you can do it. But I think it's important to remember that the starting point ought to be something in the card. So you're working with what's already there. But you're going to get off track, I think, if you start with your own personal take on a card that makes sense. It may make sense to you, but if it's very personal, then it's not going to make much sense or the same amount of sense to the questioner. So they can understand what you're saying, they can understand the words, maybe, but it's not going to be something that they can do for themselves or that they can make practical use of. So by all means, talk about, it's like PCS is Pamela Coleman Smith. It's a logo, it's an identity, it's a unifying factor on different cards. And that can mean buttons on screen. And that's a kind of logical chain of reasoning or arguing or thinking that Simone has made. But if he says, okay, Pamela Coleman Smith, and then he starts talking about somebody he knows whose name was Pamela. And she had this, dog called Beppy. And she used to feed the dog from scraps from the table. That's interesting, maybe, but it's got nothing to do with me. So if you make your interpretation too personal, it can be okay, but it's not going to be something that the questioner can take and run with or make use of or work with. But I think Simone gives a good examples of looking at the picture and seeing the three people working together. So you've got the idea of teamwork. And then he sees the initials for the logo and does something with that. So grazie mille a Simone somewhere in Italy. Okay? We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.